Hello everyone, and welcome once again to my YouTube channel called Living in Hayward, Wisconsin. On this channel, we cover all things related to living in Hayward and real estate in Hayward. I'm Audrey Miller. I'm the broker owner of Northwest Wisconsin Realty Team, and we're located on Main Street, right in downtown Hayward. And today in this video, we're going to cover some information on well and septics in rural areas such as where we live. Most of our properties do not fall within city limits. So there's a lot of private septic and private well properties. And I found that a lot of buyers who are from more urban areas don't quite understand the details of this. So this might be a little bit less interesting of a video, but hopefully very informative for you. So we'll just dive right in. Again, feel free to subscribe, like, follow me on YouTube, check out our website, contact me anytime via text or email or phone. I'd be happy to talk to you about any questions you have, help you with selling or buying in the Hayward area. And thank you for following along today. So let's start with septics, the dirty subject. So there are 3 types of septics that are installed in our area. And they are holding tank, conventional, and mound system. And I'll just explain briefly the differences between them. So a holding tank will be in a spot where there is not suitable ground for a drain field. So even with a conventional system, you still have a tank. And that's where a lot of people get confused. They think that if you don't have a holding tank, that means there is no tank. But that's just not correct. All of the systems involve a tank, typically made of concrete, sometimes of plastic. There's varying sizes from as small as 1,000 gallons, maybe up to 3,000 or 4,000 gallons. And the size of the tank is based on how many bedrooms you have in the house, i.e. how many people will be staying there. So the holding tank system and the conventional system are very similar in price. As of the spring of 2024, it costs around $10,000 to install either a holding tank system or a conventional system. Now, conventional is somewhat preferable, and here is the reason why. With a conventional system, you have the tank, but then you have what's called a drain field. So all of your gray water runs into the tank through a filter system and then out into your drain field. And it just goes into the ground. Water from, washing dishes, showering, doing laundry. Those things leach out into the ground. They're not harmful to the environment. And this saves you from having to get your tank pumped very often because only the solids are staying in the tank. With a holding tank, all of your water, gray water, all of your septic, everything goes into the holding tank. And then you have to get that pumped based on usage. It could be as often as every month, may only be once or twice a year, could be once a quarter. And the approximate cost for that is $250. So it's not a big deal either way, but you do have to budget for some extra ongoing cost if you have a holding tank and are going to be using it, especially if there's a lot of people staying at the property. The conventional system just needs to be pumped out every 3 years for a similar cost of around $250, but that's only once every 3 years because most of your gray water is running into the ground and not filling up your septic tank. And the third type is a mound system. This is where the soil is maybe not porous enough or sandy enough for a conventional system, but it's kind of a hybrid. The mound is where you create, the septic installer creates a mound using dirt that is good for drainage. And they have the tank, and then the gray water goes to the mound. And once it's installed, it functions very similarly to a conventional system, except you will see like a big mound somewhere on your property. They usually try to locate it in a place that it's not too conspicuous and you can have grass on it and everything like that. But the one downside to the mound system is the initial cost. So those can be up to twice as much as the conventional and holding tank system. So the initial cost is higher, but in the long run, it is very similar to the conventional system where it needs to be pumped out every 3 years. I do want to mention one other thing about this. The 2 main counties that I work in are Washburn and Sawyer County. And in Sawyer County, they allow you to choose. So let's say it doesn't perk for a conventional system. That's where the perk test is where they drill some holes in the ground, sample the dirt, see if it's sufficient for drainage. If it doesn't perk, you can choose to do a holding tank or a mound system if a mound is able to be done. In Washburn County, they are not a choice county. So if it doesn't perk for conventional, they require you to do a mound if a mound is able to be installed before you resort to a holding tank. So it's good to know that in Washburn County, if you're buying vacant land or you're building, that you may be forced to install a mound system. So a perk test may be more important in that case. Perk tests are typically a contingency of the offer when you're buying vacant land, and you get a septic installer out there to do a soil test. You find out if it perks for conventional or not. If you're okay with a holding tank in place of conventional, there's no need for a perk test. But if you're wanting to find out that information before you finalize your purchase and close on the deal, you would make that a contingency of the offer. But a lot of times people just have a lot of questions surrounding this when you come from a place where you've always had city water and sewer and you don't have to think about your septic or well. This is just things that in rural Wisconsin we're used to, but I found that a lot of buyers don't know much about this, so that's why I wanted to put a video out there. And then wells are definitely less complex. There's basically two types of wells in our area. One is called a sand point well, and if you Google that, you'll see what they look like. It's basically a metal framework with a point on the bottom, and you literally pound it into the ground. These only work where the water table is higher. They used to install them a lot more, especially in cabins back in the day. So you'll still find them sometimes if you're looking at properties. They are still legal to install, but not very common to install. You'll find them more in older properties. These sandpoint wells can work wonderfully for years and years without any issue, or you may have an issue where the groundwater changes and all of a sudden there's not enough depth in the sandpoint to get the groundwater. It's also a little more prone to contaminants because it's not as deep into the ground as most drilled wells. So a sandpoint, less expensive to install by far if you were going to be installing it in a new construction project. The cost can be as low as $1,500 to $2,500, whereas a drilled well is going to be $10,000 plus. Average cost for a drilled well is probably $9,500 to $14,000 or $15,000, depending on the specific depth of where you're purchasing the property and installing the well. The sandpoint, like I said, is much more cost effective to install, but you do have to have it in a heated spot. You're not allowed to install them in a basement anymore, so it has to be in like a little separate heated shed, or sometimes people will build almost like a little doghouse outside of their house and they'll heat that somehow, because the pump on a sandpoint is external. Whereas on a drilled well, the pump is part of it's somewhere in the casing of the well, somewhere down below freezing level of the ground. So you don't have to worry about insulating that. That's all done in the install process from the well driller. And we have very good water here. So with either sandpoint or drilled well, I would always suggest getting a water test, either as part of your offer or afterwards is fine as well. There's resolutions if there is issues with water, but by and large, we have very good water supply here in northern Wisconsin, and we don't have a lot of problems with contaminants in the water. The things that we do find is sometimes we need water conditioning systems if the water is too hard or has too much iron in it. And once in a while, there's bacteria found on a water test, and then you may have to get shock your system, get a reverse osmosis, which those are not too expensive either. So those are some things about wells that might be helpful to you. I think that kind of wraps up the well and septic informational video. Please let me know if you have any questions, and if there's anything I can help you with related to real estate, whether buying, selling, just other questions you have. If you want to start the conversation with me, please let me know. We can set up a time to chat. Contact me via email, phone, and as always, please like and subscribe and follow along on YouTube for more informational content coming up soon. Thank you.